So some of you will know Sheryl Newman. Sheryl Newman's been with Sil longer than I have. She started in 1999 and was part of the group that set up the original genetic evaluation and helped shape the database, and she's still doing both those things now. Over to you, Sheryl.
Thank you. I get the pleasure today of reporting on a whole lot of work that's coming to fruition and has been carried out by a lot of people. So I'd certainly like to thank all the people that I've worked with, all my colleagues, and in particular worked with Neville Amies, Sharon McIntyre and Ken Dodds. So I'm not responsible, can't take all the glory for this. I'd like to cover some background, why this is an important analysis, some recent developments that have contributed towards this, summary of some of the work we've done, how we've done some validation on it, and then pose the question about how we would do the reporting from this. So some background. The introduction of Sil in 1999 provided routine comparisons of animals across sexes, years and flocks for all breeders. Prior to this, cross-flock analyses were only done by particular researchers for particular groups, but Sil enabled this for all breeders on demand. But with the increasing number of cross-flock evaluations, the results from these cross-flock evaluations vary depending on the flocks, the goal trait groups, and the data options that you use for your analysis. So breeders get confused and frustrated when the results and the rankings for animals vary between whichever analysis is reported on. So they can have a report from a cross-flock group that might rank an animal very highly, and on another analysis it may not be ranked anywhere near as well. Sil ACE, which started in 2004 with 152 flocks and included 1.1 million animals, went some way towards providing a cross-breed, a cross-flock analysis. And it's steadily grown until currently in 2016 there's 457 flocks and 5.3 million animals in that analysis. But it still doesn't include all animals, so it's not suitable for reporting for all cross-flock groups. So this is also associated with increase in number of animals in the Sil ACE analysis over time, from 2004 through to currently. The analysis has become too slow. It takes over a week to run this analysis. It's also the number of animals in the analysis has stretched the software so that we were unable to include some data for some models. So CT data and Viascan data have not been included in the meat module. And we don't include all goal trait groups. So the goal has been, a single national genetic evaluation that would include all active and reference flocks, would include all 18 goal trait groups, and it would include all the data including such as Viascan and CT meat in the meat module. So this would be one analysis to rule the lot. Recent developments that have been we've done within the genetic engine towards being able to routinely run a national genetic evaluation have included DNA parentage updates, survival software alternatives, and as Mark referred, improving the data survival analysis. Previously, repeated analyses were used to account for different percentage probabilities for the DNA flocks. So the accuracy of DNA when it started in 2003 at about 70%, so we did multiple runs to account for the fact that the DNA parentage was not an exact science. So we were analysing up to 50 to 60 times for the breeding values. For a large cross-flock analysis, it can take up to 24 hours to run. It's certainly not possible to do 50 repeat runs of that. So, but with increases in DNA parentage accuracy, the repeat runs are no longer necessary. So we're able to just, with the 95% probability for the DNA parentage assignment, we can now just do a single run. Alternative software, we've made some changes to the software this year, which significantly reduced the analysis times. Larger cross-flock analyses that were taking more than a day to run can now all be run within 24 hours. Takes about 1/10 of the time under the new software to what it was taking previously. So the Texels, instead of taking 15 hours, half an hour. Coop worth, instead of 2 days, 4 hours. Cell ACE, which previously took over a week of time on multiple computers, now runs in 26 hours. And we can now run a single national evaluation that wasn't possible with the previous software due to size issues. A summary of what's in the National Genetic Evaluation we've been test running. Over 1,000 flocks, all 18 gold trait groups and breeding values within all those. In total, time taken for the analysis, including data extraction, analysis and reloading of the BVs, takes 65 hours, 2.5 to 3 days. So that means that we're able to do a weekly national evaluation with an adequate safety margin. So it takes half the time we would have available to run it. We've done a lot of work validating this run. So we've compared the values with ACE, we've compared it with other industry analyses, and some of the validation work we've done has been to look at the number of flocks that are connected within the analysis, to compare the breeding values that have come from other analyses with those from this run, and to compare the results for the ACE sire rankings. Sharon McIntyre's actually carried out a lot of this work, so I'd like to particularly thank her. The flocks that are connected, this is one of the earlier runs I did for a national evaluation, so it's got 830 flocks. The full run actually has over 1,000. So the top line is the national evaluation. The bottom line is ACE, and this shows the number of flocks that are connected within these analyses. So the connectedness for reproduction has gone up from 233 flocks to 408. And this circle at the end is just an example of an index. There are lots of indexes we looked at connectedness for, but rather than put up too many numbers, I've just given the ACE dual purpose index there. And for that, there was 125 flocks connected for the dual purpose index. Now there's 169. So the increase in flocks, the extra connected flocks on the bottom line there, 175 for reproduction, over 100 for survival and growth. But it is interesting that previously most of the flocks that were doing the disease traits were already in ACE, so the increase in the number of those flocks has been smaller than the production traits. One interesting fact is that some of the flocks that have come in as connected flocks are not new flocks. They're actually flocks that were already in ACE, but because we've added other flocks from outside ACE, those flocks that are in ACE have now become connected. So we've improved the connections, both for the flocks that are in ACE and the extra flocks that have been added. We've done quite a lot of comparisons of the breeding values from using the old software to the new software to make sure it wasn't going to change the results that you get. And this is a couple of examples because the analysis includes 6 million odd animals, it's not possible just to look at all those 6 million values and say, are they gone up and down? So we've taken subsets of the data to have a look at what the changes are. So the graphs on the left are the last sires for the last 3 years, and the graphs on the right are the 2015 born progeny. The top ones are weaning weight and just a couple of random traits I chose, and the bottom ones are fleece weight. As you can see, the lines are very nearly straight, so it means the values coming from the using the previous software and the current software are very similar. For the sires for the last 3 years, which include a lot of data, the lines are pretty much straight. There's a little bit more spread in just the 2015 born progeny where there's less data involved. A comparison of this is an example of the sort of comparisons we've been doing with the Cell-ACE sire rankings. So this is for dual purpose meat. So it shows the average of the breeding values, the index in the two analyses, A being ACE and N being the national evaluation. So in ACE, the average of the top 3 years of sire, of the last 3 years of sires is 94, and in the national evaluation it's 101. So it's gone up slightly with the increase in number of flocks. And the minimum values are very similar, maximum around 1,200, and so this is based on approximately 3,000 sires. So the difference between the evaluations, on average the difference is a value of 4. So on average the index has changed by 4 cents between the evaluations. Some animals increased more and some animals increased less. The maximum increase is 466 cents, so a sire might have, in the evaluation, some sires have changed by 466 cents and others have decreased by 431. And what's made some of these animals change? This is a plot of the size, the values they had on ACE along the bottom, and the values they've got on the National Genetic Evaluation on the vertical axis. Most of them, very similar values. Some of the size off the line have changed by greater amounts, and most of those have been because extra data has been added in from other flocks. They might be outside size that had no linkage with, had no flock data within ACE, and when we've added in extra flocks, that's changed their values. This is a histogram of the differences. So for most animals, so the differences along the bottom, those that didn't change at all, around 0, to those that changed by up to 400 cents, along to the left and right. For over 3,000, for almost 3,000 of those animals, there was very little change, less than 20 cents, which is the tall bar, down to a very small number of animals that changed by plus or minus 100 cents. And on this scale, you hardly see the 1 or 2 animals that changed by up to 400 cents.
Which index was that?
That was the DPM. That was the meat index. And so we've been through all the different indexes and breeding values to check this, to validate, to see where changes occurred and could we explain them. So we've now got a national evaluation that we are confident we can proceed, run routinely. We have some final questions and queries just to housekeeping matters on it to sort out, but it has been run, reloaded into the database up to half a dozen times now. So what the next step is to look at, and Mark alluded to, is reporting from this evaluation. The evaluation produces breeding values and can then therefore calculate indexes from all animals in the analysis, whether a breeder is actually recording those traits or not. So we can get a cross-flock size summary that has values for every animal. But what happens if breeders are not recording those traits? In this example, what happens if the flock on the right with the pink squares isn't recording any meat traits? Should they be able to get breeding values and therefore indexes for traits they're not recording? My opinion, not necessarily Sil, I should have put Cheryl's opinion there, is that we should not display values for traits if they're not measured or not connected. So that means that on the report, those values would appear as blanks. And following that through logically, should they get an overall index if those traits are not recorded? My feeling is that, again, they should be blanked out. If you don't record a trait, then you shouldn't be able to get breeding values and indexes. It should be obvious on the report that you're not doing those traits. And another option would be to flag those on the report. So instead of leaving them blank, you can flag them, put a symbol beside them. In this case, we've used stars as an example. So that's another option to identify when traits are not connected. My personal feeling is that if they're there, you'll compare them. And blanking them out means they're not there for comparison. You could still get those values on a within flock report, but on an across flock size summary, they need to be identified, whether it's flagging, dropping, for whatever reason, because these values cannot be validly compared to the other values on that report. So just following through that logic, the national evaluation generates BVs for all animals. So it's a proposed reporting for that. How do we handle it? Is the flock connected? No, then the values cannot be validly compared. If the flock's connected, yes, they can be validly compared. But if the EBV accuracy is low, again, comparison is not accurate. So it needs to be from a connected flock with a high accuracy to be able to validly compare breeding values and subsequent indexes. And so that's a question up for debate. And that's the end of me there.